Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm very appreciative to be here, and I know Melissa and I were really privileged to get to share a little bit about these internship opportunities with the NAFWS, and definitely want to thank the folks that were able to put this conference together this week. So I'm Danielle Ramsden. I work for American Conservation Experience as a division support specialist for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service branch. I mostly work in recruitment and member support, so I help kind of facilitate partnerships with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to get programs going and support the members throughout their terms. But thank you for allowing me to be here.
And then I actually wanted to introduce myself. My name is Melissa Mata. I'm with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I am the program coordinator for the San Juan River Recovery Implementation Program. And I'll probably fill in a little bit of my background too when I get to my slides, but Danielle will go through hers first.
Thanks, Melissa. So as I said, I work for American Conservation Experience. We are a conservation, a nonprofit conservation corps. And we're a fairly large staff at the moment. We've had a lot of growth in the past 3 years. And, you know, JEDI values are something that we're continuously working on, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So we're very excited to be here to share these with you. We are still very much growing in this aspect, and something that we're trying to find partners in our U.S. Fish and Wildlife staff that hold those same values. And it's something that Ecological Services in the Southwest region definitely has a priority, as is a priority for their office as well. So I'll just talk a little bit about the program that I primarily work in, which is Emerging Professionals in Conservation. The EPIC program is pretty focused on individual placements. So we like to find recent graduates and young professionals who are excited to work in the field of conservation, to give them hands-on opportunities to work usually one-on-one or with a small team with an agency mentor. So that can be agency partners such as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which is the division that I personally work for, the National Park Service, Bureau of Land Management, Forest Service, National Resource Conservation Service, and often other nonprofit groups as well, who are doing conservation work and have grant funding. So these projects can definitely range from visitor services jobs, service in parks and recreation, wildlife surveys, habitat restoration. It definitely runs the gamut, and it's something that our range has increased like in the past 2 years, and definitely can reflect what our partners want to see. And from feedback from our members, sometimes we've gotten feedback from them that they would love to see more jobs that have diverse opportunities to build their resume within a single placement. So I'll go ahead and share this experience from Chantal West. She was a crew member.
So Bespoke Post, they just send you a cool box every
for BLM Field School.
Really cool motto on the res is to walk in beauty. So that's the main point I think of environmental conservation, is to walk in beauty. You know, like respect everything around you and take care of it, because it's there providing lots for you. My name is Chantal West. I am 20 years old and I'm from the Navajo Reservation. I am doing the BLM Field School for 2020 and I'm enjoying it very much so far. I would just love to take all of this information and experience that I'm learning through the program and pursuing my youth outreach that I would love to do back on the reservation.
So this one will have reading colors. You can see the little orange by its paired fans. Perfect, got that.
Taking all of this and sharing it with lots of kids, all age groups, but mainly kids, because I love working with kids. And also going back on the res, I want to do community gardens, voluntary things, lots of stuff we do here. And it's just nice that I actually have that on hand personal experience to share with everybody. But I feel like I've grown a lot as far as becoming a more patient and understanding individual, and just becoming a lot more aware of how much more detailed environmental conservation is. I think my crew is my highlight because all of our projects are super awesome, but I love how we've really grown, and that really just highlights every trip because of the way you communicate. We figure things out and help each other work, you know, and help each other find more interests in things that even if we don't think we're interesting, it's a constant moving highlight with everybody here, like super appreciative. Growing up on the reservation, you kind of are super used to working through harsh conditions, working in general. So the only challenging part would probably be just not going back home as often as I was when I was just going to school and working. If anybody was asking me if they felt like it was the right move for them, I would definitely encourage anybody because I wasn't even sure myself if I wanted to do this program just because I wasn't too sure what to expect. But it surpasses all of your expectations in a super awesome, beautiful way because there's so many new things and new people that you meet in a constant learning experience, full of education and full of people who have prior knowledge and people who really have a passion, you know, for the environment. And to just even become part of that community, I would definitely encourage anybody to be part of that experience.
So I guess to talk a little bit about the specific 4 fellowships that we have in the Southwest region. These would start in October of this year and run through August of 2022. They're based out of the Southwest Regional Office in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Some are out of the Sevieta National Wildlife Refuge, and one of them could be placed in Alpine, Arizona. We currently, Melissa and I are recruiting for these positions, and the closing date to receive applications is 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, August 22nd. I will definitely share the links for those in the chat before the end of our presentation. And definitely you can feel free to reach out to Melissa or I through the Whova app, or I'm sure Leslie can connect anyone who has any questions to us. I can also go back to the first slide and share our email as well, but these fellowships are funded to support employment of youth and young adults and are open to those ages 21 to 30. For veterans, that increases up to 35. And in terms of compensation, all 4 of these have a weekly living allowance. 2 of them are $250 a week with housing provided, and 2 housing is not provided, and the living allowance is $500 a week. On top of that, we have AmeriCorps partnership for all 4 of these positions. So upon completion of service, anyone would receive an education award of $6,195, which can be used to pay off student debt at certain universities. It can be applied to any education like schooling in the future. It can also, depending on eligibility for the university, can be applied to books and supplies for someone enrolled as a student as well. And then in addition to that, we also have set up a public land corps hiring authority for all of the fellows. They'll be serving enough hours that they'll be eligible for a 2-year non-competitive hiring status for federal jobs. That can be used at USA Jobs to apply for certain positions that may not be open to all members of the public. And with that, I will pass it over to Melissa to share a bit more specifics about each 4 of these program options. And stop sharing my screen.
Melissa, that looked fine, but you are still muted, just so you know.
Go. Great. Thank you,
Actually,
Danielle. Can you guys hear me now?
yes, but just so you know, you went from presenter mode back to practice mode, I think. Or,
Perfect.
yeah,
Thank you very much, Lizzie. Well, thank you everybody again. My name is Melissa Mata. I'm with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I've actually been attending these Native American Fish and Wildlife Society meetings for quite some time now. I think every time I come or present, I kind of tell people how many years I've been here. But I've been probably attending some of these meetings since about 2010. Can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm almost nearing 19 years with the Fish and Wildlife Service. So I'm happy to be here with Danielle to highlight these internships or fellowships, as they're technically called, with ACE. This is kind of the first effort I think Ecological Services has done with ACE in the Southwest region. I know there have been other ACE positions within refuges. And as many as you may know, Fish and Wildlife Service has many programs in nationwide, you know, whether it be refuges systems, fisheries and aquatic conservation, ecological services, migratory birds. And so specifically these positions are going to be within ecological services. My background that's kind of been helpful with Fish and Wildlife Service has been in fisheries. You know, I went to Humboldt State University and kind of worked my way as a student. You know, I went through the Pathways program, what they call it today, or formerly the SCEP program, where I kind of went, you know, every summer between my school breaks and worked at a Fish and Wildlife Service facility to get my foot in the door and experience. And so this is an opportunity actually for any of our young adults out there wanting going into natural resources, whether it's to actually go back and work for their tribe, but also good experience outside from maybe the federal side, or trying to get their foot in the door in the federal side. So this is one great opportunity to do that with these ACE interns. And we hope, you know, reaching out to folks in this audience and outwards that we get a good application pool. But specifically for ecological services, we are essentially responsible for, you know, we are kind of leading the nation and interior on conserving imperiled species and their habitats and ensuring that they have sustainable population levels for fish, wildlife, plants, and to continue for future generations of our children's. You know, I want my children's to be able to handle, you know, a razorback sucker at someday or Colorado pike minnow that I'm proud to be recovering. And the biggest purpose for the ecological services too is to actually implement the Endangered Species Act, which is to conserve threatened and endangered species. So these are species that are on the brink of extinction, or we can see in the future they are near extinction levels, as well as protect the ecosystems in which they depend on. Here's, you know, the Southwest region covers New Mexico, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Texas. These positions mostly will be held in New Mexico, besides maybe one of them in Alpine. But at the same time, I think some of these positions, like the one I'm going to talk about next, should cover lots of areas of species being conserved in Fish and Wildlife Service. And that first one I wanted to highlight is the Endangered Species Recovery Fellows duties. And so this one's being sponsored by the regional office. And they're responsible for recovering many species on the landscape at a higher level. As many of you guys gone through your academic careers, you guys have been, everybody, and even I have growing up through the academic realm, is we get our techniques, we know the philosophy, the theories, the applications, but lots of times it's very rare to see a course on the Endangered Species Act and how to even get, you know, some of that experience under your belt of doing that. So when you go to USA Jobs, you do that questionnaire qualifications for a certain position, and they usually have something, you know, have the experience of implementing the Endangered Species Act, or they'll be specific, you know, recovery planning or listing activities or Section 7 consultations with a federal action agency. And lots of times you don't know what to put because you may know of it and be aware of it, but maybe you don't have hands-on experience with it. And so one opportunity that all these 4 positions will give kind of these up and coming conservationists in our world is they'll get some hands-on experience of implementing the ESA. And so for the RO position, it's going to be more kind of at the level of helping out other offices and both across the region in Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona on certain species. Not exactly which species those will be, but based on the priorities. Maybe petitions will come in and maybe you get to help do a 90-day petition finding for a species and go through that process and working with the biologists. And many of the species that we do conserve on the landscape are in these photos here, like the black-footed ferret, the American burying beetle, the Chiricahua leopard frog, the lesser prairie chicken on the far right, and then the monarch butterfly. An interesting thing about this position too is they just started a new position in the regional office called for at-risk species conversation. So this fellow will be able to see where that we're going to be leading with Fish and Wildlife Service with that new position in the office. In addition, not only this position, but all the positions, we're hoping, since they're so close to each other, that this could maybe be a small cohort of students working with each other, or early career development to do cross overlap between all the fellowships. So this person can help with the wolf, this person can help with bulls and tortoise, this person can help with the San Juan recovery program. So there's going to be some overlap on this one. And so that's an overview of the one position that's going to be stationed out of the regional office. And the next one that I'm partial to is the San Juan Recovery Basin Implementation Program. So I'm the program coordinator for that. And our mission for this program is actually to recover 2 endangered species, but also keep an eye out on the native fish community as well. On the top photo here, it's a picture of a Colorado pike minnow, and on the lower picture, it's a picture of a razorback sucker, the 2 species that we're evaluating. And our biggest goal for this recovery program is to recover these 2 species, but also allow water development to occur in the San Juan River Basin. We have it's a collaborative program, so we have lots of opportunities to work with partners, with federal partners, that may be BLM, Bureau of Indian Affairs, Bureau of Reclamation, as well as the states of Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah. And then we have our tribal partners here, Hickory Apache Nation, Navajo Nation, Ute Tribe, and Southern Ute Indian Tribe, as well as some water users and some NGOs like the Nature Conservancy. And so there'll be an idea for this position to work with probably many entities of these partners on the ground. Specifically, duties for this fellow is they would be a field liaison for the recovery program. They would be a point person to assist many of our principal investigators on the ground. So if they're coming in on October, the first thing I can see them helping out with would be non-native fish removal on the San Juan River Basin for catfish, working with New Mexico Fish and Wildlife Conservation Office. But we also have, spring and fall activities. So they'll be doing fish captures, whether it be using an electrofishing raft, doing some habitat work with some folks from Pitt State University, as well as we have pit tag antenna readers. Most of our endangered species have pit tags in them so that we can track them through time. And so we have a lot of equipment out there that can track movement of fish and detection of fish and help that, as well as stocking. This photo here on the top left, that's actually not Jared Bowman from Navajo Nation holding a pike minnow. We have a razorback sucker. This picture here on the top right, second middle, that's a Glenn Shelby with Navajo Nation doing some nappy ponds work. And then we actually work down towards Lake Powell at the inlet. And here's a picture of that waterfall where we do a lot of captures of razorback suckers and actually help facilitate moving fish upstream of that. And that could be a potential for this fellow too. As well as an important thing that is necessary for this, any positions is we're going to give them opportunities to write field reports, help with planning documents, and just work on those writing skills as well. The next position is the Mexican Wolf Program. And I would say this is probably the most popular fellows that's probably being announced right now, maybe because it's more of the wildlife, and there's probably been less wildlife kind of intern opportunities than there is maybe fisheries. And so for the Mexican Wolf Recovery Program, they're responsible for the recovery of the endangered species of the gray wolf. It was reintroduced in Arizona and New Mexico in 1998. Currently, the population has a number of 186 individuals in the wild. And the recovery program also has an interagency field team, which includes Fish and Wildlife Service, New Mexico Game and Fish, Arizona Game and Fish, Forest Service, mistaken what WS is, so my apologies, and also White Mountain Apache Tribe, as well as they get help from other programs in Fish and Wildlife Service as well. Duties for this one in particularly is a lot of handling of the wolf. So they'll be doing some foot-holding trapping opportunities to place radio collars. They'll be proactively working with any kind of livestock, landowner conflicts and how we deal with that, and interacting with the public, assisting with population counts, do some annual helicopter count and captures, and so there'll be some training there as well. Doing some cross fostering from captive pups to the wild, and so that's where you'll start working with Bosquedale Apache and working with folks in the wild, as well as doing pup counts. And then so there'll be quite a bit of telemetry work and radio telemetry work in this position. The unique about this position, since 2 of these 4 fallows will actually get to do some wolf work, and that's the next position. And the last position I wanted to talk about here is going to be dedicated kind of 50-50 between the wolf recovery program and also Bolson tortoise. So this one's kind of pretty cool. The wild species is only found in Mexico. There's less than 2,000 individuals. However, the Turner Endangered Species Fund is captively breeding this species at the Armendaris and Ladder ranches in New Mexico. 19 tortoises have been released on the Armendaris ranch and are monitored by radio transmitters. We are currently working on a safe harbor agreement, and so that's something this fellow will get some exposure to. What's that kind of process under the Endangered Species Act, and what section of the act that would be. In particular, again, as I mentioned, this position will be shared. This position will be shared with the wolf program. But this position will also be aiding in the propagation of these turtles at the Armendaris and Ladder Ranch. They are radio tagged as well, and so they'll be doing some telemetry work and tracking of these species. So surveying in the field for these tortoises, as well as doing field work with the wolf recovery program. And then again, this is kind of my last slide for this. You know, the biggest goal for these 4 fellows is actually try to get cross coordination, kind of develop a cohort environment, give these individuals as much exposure to Fish and Wildlife Service and programs to offers. And I think we're willing to work with the fellows too, if they have an interest as well, of other programs in the Fish and Wildlife Service, maybe it'd be migratory birds or refuges, that, you know, we could try to find those opportunities to allow them to get those exposures too. And so there's some flexibility. There's some main targets and some projects that they'll be working on, but at the same time, we really want to get kind of outreach and exposure to Fish and Wildlife Service and the programs. In particular, it's ecological services at this time. And that's an overview of those positions. And that is our presentation.
Nice use of QR code in your presentation. I like that.
That's all Danielle.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Thanks, Leslie. Also, Ashley, that's super awesome that your cousin was in that picture back there. I also just dropped the direct links for each 4 of those positions in the chat for anyone who wants to copy and save those for later. Anyone is more than welcome to share these out within their networks. I think that Melissa and I would be super grateful for any attempt to get the word out on these.
And if there's any specific questions, you know, we'll take those, or if you wanted to reach out to me on specific questions, I can also direct you to who the leads are for each positions as well. But I'm happy to answer questions now, later. August 22nd is kind of the dead date for these positions.
Go ahead, Elvita.
Great presentation. Do you guys get many Native people applying for these programs?
So I will let Danielle do that, but I would say that's kind of a target audience that we're looking for, given that we're in New Mexico in the Southwest. And so that's one reason we're here today. We're hoping we can reach out as far as wide as we can to get some Native applicants to apply to these positions. or even Mexican Americans, since Albuquerque's here as well. But we are looking, for a diverse pool of applicants to apply.
Yeah.
How many people do you guys hire, like on an annual basis?
For ACE, we are a national nonprofit conservation corps, so it's definitely large numbers of applicants for folks that are partnered with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And this is not just ecological services with these positions with Melissa, but that currently we have about 180 folks in the field, and about 80 of those people at the moment are part of something called the Directorate Fellowship Program. So that's not connected with these Southwest positions, but that was a diversity focused program. And I believe we had an applicant pool that was about 25% non-white. And it's definitely something we want to improve upon, but we're definitely getting our recruitment practices kind of up to snuff to get things like not just released on the typical national job boards that a lot of conservation corps are using and that frankly ACE used in the past. Right now, like a lot of my efforts as a recruitment manager are definitely to reach out to folks with, like using resources with tribal liaisons with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service staff, reaching out to and doing events like these and basically like putting the manpower and the time and effort into looking at local resources like tribal community colleges and historically Black and underrepresented community programs and other nonprofits. It's something that I feel pretty strongly about and is one of the reasons that I got into ACE was to kind of help them towards that direction.
On Tuesday, the first day of our conference, DJ Monet with the service, I don't know if you guys know him, but he talked about an Indian Youth Service Corps that they were hoping was going to go under their program, but I guess it was directed to the National Park Service. And then again, he didn't know where that was or the funding or anything like that or the specifics. But I'm just seeing something like what you guys presented. I really see that there's a need for a specific, like an Indian Youth Service Corps or a program like you guys have for young adults. Looks awesome. I'm hoping that, maybe you guys can utilize the society to help recruit. Maybe we can hit a bigger pool of some Native people. So it looks awesome, man. That was a great presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's, it's a big focus for us and the Fish and Wildlife Service, I think in the Southwest and ecological services. Like this came about, I know there's some recommendations about, providing more funds for Fish and Wildlife to do these interns to give them a bit of a better stipend. And so we're learning that too. And so that maybe can limit, maybe the recruitment based on the stipend that we have. So we're doing some lessons learned and what maybe that magic number would be, because they are students. They may have to come out to their own. Like she said, there's only 2 of them that can have housing. And so we're learning as we go for our first times running this, but we hope it's a success and that this is an opportunity to continue in the future, because that 2-year non-competitive status for application, that's a big bonus. So if it's not open to the public, you could still apply within your 2 years of your program. And same thing, just from a hiring perspective, we get an option to what do we want to pull from, the open to the public or the non-competitive. So it does make a quite big difference. You apply for all of them if you're eligible for all of them, but if there's only the one for, not open to the public, then having that 2-year status really does help.
We also have a question from Ashley. Go ahead, Ashley.
Hello, you two. Thank you so much for sharing this incredible information with us, as well as, these incredible opportunities for our youth. My question is, so I understand that, and I apologize if I had missed the details, but the Endangered Species Fellow is out of the Southwest Regional Office, and then the San Juan River Basin Recovery and where are the rest of the fellows going to be located?
So technically, I think that'd be maybe a little bit up in the air. So the 3 of the 2, so one of the Wolf program maybe be in Alpine and one will be in Albuquerque. We're trying to see if we can get them all housed together, at least the 3 of them in Albuquerque at the New Mexico Ecological Services Field Office. And so we're in Albuquerque, New Mexico off of Asuna and Jefferson. And so we're getting modules set up in there so that they can be interactive between versus having one person just stuck in the regional office. And then, but there's going to definitely be one in Alpine.
Oh, okay, cool, thank you. And then I'm guessing like you all just will provide the travel and everything. Like I'm just guessing for the San Juan River Basin Recovery, like if you do any of the field exercise, you'll, I guess, transport them to around Farmington area for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So you'll be working, jumping on in the field vehicles with folks, and you know, you'll get to the location you need to. Sometimes you might need to go out on your own. You just got to do defensive driving, get the right paperwork for authorizing to use government vehicles. So we'll have a vehicle for that person when they need to go out on their own. But the goal is to be with them, you know, interact with them.
Okay, that is so cool. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
And we do have one more comment and question from Cynthia in the chat. She said, super presentation. We have MW interns through funding with BIA. This would sure be great to get this info out to our higher ed program. Do you have flyers or posters or other general info to pass on to them? And is it a year-round program?
Yeah, it's definitely something. Cynthia, if you want to get in touch with me, I'll drop my email in the chat. I would be happy to create a flyer and maybe put some of those beautiful QR codes in there to share out. And certainly, like, you're welcome to email those direct links or the application pages for all of those. But I would be happy to put together a flyer for you if that's good to distribute out. Let me just drop that in there. Thanks for your question.
And again, like I'm highlighting the 4 that we're responsible for in our Southwest region in ecological services, but there are many more opportunities on their website.
Great.
Yeah, and I will say for these positions, because they'll need to drive federal vehicles, the minimum age is 21, but right now I'm working on a program for at an urban wildlife refuge in Minnesota Valley that is youth from ages like 14 to 18. So it's definitely not just limited to folks who are like straight out of university.
And it looks like Darren also has a final question.
Hey, good morning, Melissa.
Good morning, Darren.
Danielle, good morning. I know, I think your previous effort was sent out to the region through our email contacts, but I just had a question. Do you guys try to provide this information directly to the universities in the Southwest region? I know New Mexico State, University of Arizona, Colorado State have great, excellent natural resource programs. So I was just wondering if any direct contact was sent to the universities.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of those universities use Handshake, and so that's the preferred way for the students to get in contact with all current job opportunities. So yeah, thank you, Darren. Definitely have been reaching out to local universities and not just nationally.
Yeah, and the same here. We've kind of done an email blast to as many universities, like the co-ops all over Fish and Wildlife, or all over the Southwest. So U of A, New Mexico State University, and so we've been blasting out. Like, and I got some calls already from some students from U of M and NMSU. So it looks like it's working to some of the schools.
Great, thank you. Thank you both for your presentation. Sounds like there's a lot of interest.